I'm glad to welcome back to the Meeting House the artist from Louisville, Kentucky, my son, Ike Moody. Let's give him a welcome.
Hey there.
This is the fifth stop on our Tangle tour of 23. I've been doing short interviews with Ike at each one of these, and each time he's had a brand new piece of art.
I suppose so, yeah.
But I want to start tonight with just a couple of minutes about the very first piece on the Tangle tour. It's behind me here. Mm-hmm. Why don't you say a word about this?
Absolutely. Hello, first of all, to the audience. Just to bring everybody up to speed and a refresher, it's got some words on the painting. The words are a Latin phrase called salvator ambulando, is that phrase. And what that translates to is there is salvation in walking. And or walking solves everything, or walking is the solution.
It's a phrase from St. Augustine.
St. Augustine, so it goes way back, and many poets and writers have referenced this phrase. I guess probably other people too, poets and thinkers and things. But I ran across it while I was in the federal house of detention reading.
Otherwise known as a prison or a penitentiary.
Yes, the Bureau of Prisons, where I was serving a 98-month sentence for bank robberies. And it was about halfway through that sentence, in which I was doing a lot of walking, and came upon this phrase and liked it because I found it to be true in my life, just in the sense that it is what I did on a daily basis. I walked and spoke the spiral with my buddy Woodstock, who is no longer with us, but he was with me the entire time I was in prison, up till the very end there, and we lived together and walked the track together and spoke and talked, and we'd hit all the subjects and come back around on them, as people do in prison.
Well, as people do when they're walking, whether you're in or out.
Yeah.
A lot of people, including myself, have discovered that walking clarifies the mind and clarifies our thinking.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it's like magic. The way it contributes to the way that motion contributes to the thinking process, or just the being present process. Really.
I've always conceived it. If you have a bag of things, or rocks or something, and you shake it, things kind of settle down and they move around and settle down, and large things go to the bottom and small things come to the top. And I've always thought of walking as a way of doing that with what was going on in my mind.
That's like the way when you have a handful of change and you knock it together a few times, and then it lines up.
Yeah,
I can dig that.
And I've found that even as a preacher. I know when we were living in Owensboro, I frequently would walk to church on Sunday morning.
I remember.
And I found that it was a really great time for the things that were in my head and in my soul to shake and settle down and take on the organization that they needed.
That's a really good point. It made me think while you were saying that, about all the time I had to think in prison, anyway, I kind of lost that thought, but yeah, go on.
Well, here is the new piece for tonight. So start here and talk to us about the piece here.
Okay, so this is it's sort of an unintentional painting, honestly. I have a bunch of canvases at my studio, and this canvas kept getting moved around while all the other paintings that I was working on, that I was really working on with intention, and then I just kept doing things to this canvas. It started with, I cut out the shape of a bird, and I was using it as a stencil. And I was just practicing on this canvas initially, and I feel like this piece for me is a bit sort of like a logo, honestly, for the theme of the paintings, which is Salvatore Ambulando. I'm hoping to have 7 pieces finished before I get them photographed, and hoping to make a book of it with some stories. And each of these pieces then will indicate another section. And the reason what ended up becoming a painting that I brought here will be a good piece for tonight and for this book is because it is a symbol, the heart and the crow, that I've used frequently throughout my entire art making process. There's hearts on all of them. And it's not like I got into art and said, I'm going to put a heart on every drawing, but I do put hearts on lots of drawings. And normally it's because I'm drawing somebody that I really like and I'll put a heart on it, you know?
Alan, bring me the Oddville book back there.
Right, yeah. Anyway, so also in the House of Detention, I was told by a person when they saw one of my drawings that had 2 crows on it, and he said, "You know what 2 crows means?" And I said, "I know, I have no clue what it means." It seemed just like a cool image to me, and he told me that in Nordic literature, which I was totally unfamiliar with and really still am, but that in Nordic mythology and in the Nordic literature, anytime 2 birds are represented either visually or in the story, it represents the past and the future, or memory and hope. So I really loved that, and so I used that. And in this painting, you know, I ended up doing the heart later. It's just a painting full of these crows, which, if they represent thoughts about the future and the past, then it's important to me, and because it is the lack of ability to stay in the present and too much time spent in the future and in the past, in the memories, which I feel creates compulsive behavior, sometimes leading to things like addiction or incarceration if the mistakes are bad enough. If a person spends too much time in the future, enslaved by their daydreaming, you know, just too much time regretting the past, then you spend time beating yourself up for these things or whatnot, you know. So getting a hold of these things in my life was very important, and is still something, of course, that, you know, I can find myself worrying about something that I have no control over, you know.
Now, years ago, Ike did a drawing of a solo raven that I used on the front cover of a book of essays. Do you remember drawing this piece?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's almost exactly like this one. I
So,
reflected on that. I mean, I just drew it from memory. I don't have I didn't know where the copy of my book was, so I just drew it. Yeah, I just drew it from memory.
There it is, right there. And this is 2004, so we're talking really early in your incarceration.
Well, 4 years in.
Well, I mean, this had to have been '03, at least, if not before, for it to get on the cover of an '04 book.
Right.
So what possessed you to draw this?
I don't know. I mean, for me, birds, like for a lot of people, have a significance, you know. In prison, you don't see much wildlife. You don't touch any grass for the most part. I mean, you occasionally have a patch of grass here or there. There are no trees, not where I was anyway. I think some places have trees, but you were completely removed from things like that. So for me, the bird is just a symbol. It wasn't really like I had a relationship with a bird, or there was a bird episode or a bird moment or anything.
Didn't fly into your cell or anything like
no.
that?
There was no like Shawshank thing where I was feeding the bird with the worm. No, none of that. It was strictly symbolic, and I feel like the crow, I think for lots of people, has a sort of a mysterious presence, a feeling of like, well, it might even be darkness or mystery or, you know, a change or something ominous, perhaps sometimes. For me, it's not an ominous symbol, but, you know, it has some sort of significance when I see a crow, I always think of my friend Woodstock. You know, for me now, because he was with me when all this was happening, and he passed away. And now anytime a crow catches me off guard with a big, caw, I immediately think of Woodstock. So it's cool.
So, when did you start drawing anything?
Oh, that's a good question. So the first drawing I ever made, and I was in 8th grade, and I think I told the story before in one of the earlier interviews, but I'll tell it again really quick. We were preparing to leave Pittsburgh for Third Baptist Church. We were going to move, to Owensboro my freshman year, and in my 8th grade year, I had the opportunity to draw one picture of my friend Chris Hampton. He was my partner. The art teacher gave us a couple pointers, and my picture ended up looking like my partner. So he put it in the varsity art show, which had like 4,000 people in the high school. So it was a big deal for me. And you may not recall, but when we went and saw it, it was, on the bottom of one of those cardboard or whatever those things,
display,
off in the corner, like in some far room in the thing. I was like,
wasn't
look,
as
there
prominent.
it is on the ground. Yeah, no, but I was still very proud of it. And then we moved to Owensboro, where, as a freshman, I didn't touch art again until I went to jail at the age of 18.
Yeah, and I remember you drawing. So when you got into the Lewisburg prison in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the original big house.
Yeah, the original big house. You started drawing.
Well, no, that's not true. So
That's not true.
No, I started drawing when I went to jail at 18, and jail is not prison. So I went to jail, and I did 2 years on a 10-year sentence. During that 2-year sentence, and that was for armed robbery. During that 2 years, I drew a lot of people, though I was not an artist. I didn't say to myself, I'm an artist. And I didn't ever even think about, well, I'm an artist. I just did it because it was the only money I had,
You made money at it.
Well, and we were bored. In jail, it's boring, I mean, you got 16 men in an 8-man cell, and you're not going outside except maybe once a week. And it's kind of a negative place to be in that situation, So, and you certainly can't just stare at people all the time, or it wouldn't be good for you. So, I mean, staring at somebody in prison or jail is an aggressive act, So rather than just stare at people, because my mind was blown, literally. The first person I drew in jail was a guy named Pops. He had just gotten life sentence. He was a homeless man on the streets of Owensboro, and he had killed his best friend down by the river with a broken bottle in the neck. And I was blown. I was like, what? I'm like, first of all, it's his best friend. Second of all, like, what? And third of all, he didn't even seem too upset about it. He was super cozy over there in the corner bunk on the bottom, and he's fixing to do life. And so to me, I was boggled my mind, and just staring at him, it just came out of my mouth. Can I draw you? Because I was just fascinated. And then I kept doing it because it felt good, and he liked it, and I liked it, and other people liked it. And so I drew somebody else and drew somebody else. And then it was 2 years later, I got out. I was out for close to 2 years, really about 19 months.
I want to say this, though. Drawing somebody legitimizes looking at them.
Right. Obviously, the reason I said, can I draw you, is because I was staring at him.
Right.
Right.
And
right.
you could get away with that if you were drawing them.
Well, I mean, it's not that I was trying to get away with something. I was looking at him because I was interested and curious and fascinated, and rather than just stop looking at them, I wanted to get to know them more and understand them. Let me if you don't mind, let me finish just the chronology of it. So 2 on a 10, I started drawing. I was out for 17 months, during which time, this is a very important time, during which time I fell into this epiphany as a result of 2 very goofy drawings. One day I said, I can be an artist. I mean, and at this time, I'm really neck deep in a whole bunch of monkey business, You
know where that was when you...
I know exactly where it was, and I know exactly what I did.
About it.
I was at a halfway house, fixing to go back to prison, no doubt, and I drew these 2 pictures. I said, I'm going to be an artist. I walked across the city of Lexington to my friend Mary's house. She was my prom date in high school, valedictorian, went on, but somebody I very much respected and a very good friend of mine. I took these pictures over to her place.
Wait a minute, I want to ask this question. You didn't make it out of high school. She was the valedictorian.
Yeah, yeah. I think she just did it to make her parents mad.
I don't think
know.
so.
Yeah. You know.
Okay.
Anyway, so this is a super pivotal moment in my life as far as art. I may never have drawn again had this not happened. I was fully convinced, hypomanic, some might say. And I set these pictures up in front of her, and reflecting now, I know they weren't that good. I realized they were not that good. At the moment, I thought, I'm going to be an artist. You know, they were enough to convince me in that moment, and to send me across the street, across the city, to tell her. I got there, I put them up. I said, I figured it out. And she said, what? I said, I know what I'm going to do. And she said, what? And I said, this. I'm going to be an artist. And she was like, well, isn't that awesome? And I said, what? And she said, now that you know, you just have to do it. And that's not a big deal. It might not sound epic or anything, but 23 years later, after drawing every day for 23 years, I reflect on that moment and I realize, had she chosen to be negative or pessimistic or anything other than encouraging me, doing anything other than watering my belief with her encouragement, and the fact that I respected her so much, I took it and ran. I said, you're right. Put the blinders on and did it. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up. You know, they compare themselves to other people. And so as a 23-year-old starting to draw, there were people with 10 years on me. You know, they were good artists. I didn't know what to do. And so I developed that. I didn't come up with this, but you know, I never compare myself to anybody because it's only going to either discourage me or make me feel better than. Neither of those are going to serve me in a way that is any good. And so those are the two mottos I came up with, that and do what you can with what you got, no matter where you're at.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which, of course, she did. She went on to be
emergency room doctor. You know, I mean, I don't know what she's doing now, being amazing, no doubt.
Yeah, out west somewhere. Well, this is a very interesting piece of your journey, which has been a fascinating and often difficult journey. Thank you for talking with us about this tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
People can watch all the videos and put this journey together.
Yeah.
Thanks for being in
Absolutely.
the meeting house. Let's listen to some more music.
All right.